Welcome back to another episode of GIS Answers. We'll continue where we left off, looking at Polk County in Florida, and we'll look at some more sightings of Bigfoot. So we'll click on another Class A sighting, October 2004, 2005. Couple describes vocals and sightings on their fence line outside Mulberry. October 2005, 2004, 2005. It started last year when it was cool enough to sit around the fire. My husband and I and some neighbors heard a growl or a deep groan that we had never heard before coming from the woods behind our property. The next night it was late. My husband and I were sitting around the fire and we heard what sounded like something large running and knocking down trees. My husband said, "That was no hog or deer. They don't sound like that." We ran inside the house as it got closer to us. Later that week, I heard a dog whining and barking. I looked out the back door and I saw it. It was standing at the fence line, looking in the backyard towards the fire. It was the biggest, scariest thing I've ever seen. I quietly walked away from the window and took my dog with me, in fear that the barking would bring it in closer. I buried my head under the blankets. We told people about it, and no one believes us. It seems the fire brings it in. This year we are having fires again already. Late at night, about 12 to 2 a.m., sitting by the fires, the noises are back. I would love for someone to come and see if they can find this thing. It is very swampy behind us. You can literally get lost back there. Description: about 8 to 9 feet tall, reddish brown colored hair, hairy all over, arms that literally hung to the knees, and it stood slightly crouched. It was as if it was observing us. When it comes around, there's a pungent smell, almost like a combination of dirty swamp water and a skunk. Its eyes are very dark, almost empty looking. The width of its body was about 4 feet, give or take. If it ain't Bigfoot, please tell me what it is. They also noticed the owls quit hooting before, and the dogs freaked out along with that pungent smell I mentioned before. Conditions: late at night between the hours of 10 and 3 a.m. Environment: very wet, swampy, some thick, some thin areas throughout. Very good. So let's go up by Lakeland. I just want to have a look at some of the imagery here. And yeah, it looks like quite rural with small towns in between. So Mulberry, that was the one we looked at. Yeah, that was up by Lakeland. Okay, we've got a twilight sighting on the west side of Lakeland, September 1974. September 1974. I just read one of these stories and I wanted to let you know about an incident that happened to me in the early fall of 1974. I still remember it clearly enough, though it has been 30 years since. It took place on the west side of Lakeland, Florida, in Polk County. This took place about 8 miles from the Saddle Creek area near Lake John, which is at the end of Willow and Redwood Avenues. The area at that time was significantly more rural than today, and there was wooded, swampy area nearby, the end of Cleveland Heights Golf Course. I could show you specifically on a map, but it was just northwest of Willow Avenue. We were sitting outside, looking towards the northwest. The sun had set. We heard wood being chopped or tapped just behind the house on the other side of the street. The sound was muffled, further away than the house. We stood up and looked to see if we could see anything behind the house, when something that looked like a very large upright monkey crawled up one of the pine trees and jumped to another one. It looked around for a moment and jumped down what must have been 20 feet. So they heard the sound of wood being chopped or tapped. There was another witness, and it was just after sunset, twilight. Pine forest on the edge of a swamp. Interesting. That was a good one. Class B, sighting at dusk by a father and daughter riding an ATV. This is Class B sighting, April 2013. 2 deputy sheriffs report hearing possible vocalizations while hog hunting. April 2013. Class B. And where do I start? Oddly enough, here at my last resort. Let me please start off with the whole "I'm not crazy" speech. I live here in Central Florida and work as a deputy sheriff for the past 16 years. Add to that my time in the military, and being somewhat of a hunter, one could say I've spent a good bit of time in the woods and around the world. However, 1.5 years ago, myself and a friend with a similar background heard something while hog hunting at night that to this day rattled my very being. The location was near Lake Hatchinia in the Poinciana area of Polk County. The time was close to 2 a.m. We were still hunting in an open area with a heavy wood line between us and the lake. What we both heard is difficult to describe since I have only ever heard a similar sound in a movie. Yep, a movie. And excluding that in my 4 decades of life and travel, I have never heard anything remotely close. It was not a whoop or a howl or a cry, but what I can only describe as a chuffing noise. Now, if you want to listen to the only thing that I have ever been able to find to come close, watch Jurassic Park. And when the raptors call each other, that's it. But here is where the similarity ends. The sound was much deeper and had a slight rumble at the end. From our position, it sounded at least quarter to half a mile away. The noise was made 4 times like chuff, chuff, chuff. Then a complete silence. And by that, I mean not even the birds were chirping. Both my buddy and I had the whole hair on the back of our necks, thing going the whole time. What set our nerves on overdrive was that after about an hour, we heard it again. This time it was to the north and only about 50 yards away. Needless to say, it was much louder and honestly, I felt it in my chest. Whatever it was big and moving our way in the tree line. We could hear it moving slowly to the west, and it did not sound like a deer, bear, or any of those animals I have heard or tracked. I will say this, I do not scare easily. I have been alone in the deep woods, in the green swamp, and never had a second thought. But that night, I have not, and I will not ever forget. We hunted the rest of the night back to back, literally. Now, I assume you are wondering why I'm writing this here. Well, in truth, I have searched every site on strange noises with no luck. I have spoken to countless others about it with no luck, and got in touch with my buddies at FWC with no luck. Am I a believer? Well, my thought is simple. Why can't they exist? Did we hear one that night? I have no clue. I am making contact with you because, as I stated earlier, it seems like my last resort. Maybe you or someone has heard the same thing and can identify the animal. If you actually have, or just need to QEC me, I can be contacted by email or phone. Wow, amazing. So 2 witnesses, deputy sheriff and military background, hearing this noise that they've never ever heard before and unexplained. It's amazing. So that's it for today. Hopefully you found this interesting, and please subscribe to the channel, and we'll do another one. Thanks.